Hey, hey, what's up? What's up? Back again. I'm just freelancing right now, just talking about stuff on my mind, things I think about. Today today I just want to talk about some things. I really want to keep the topic on the human behavior versus nature. What is our nature? I think I want to repeat that over and over again because I think when you're young, you got to learn from your parents, and then as you get older, then your parents instill things in you. They teach you what they know. But the question would be, do they know what's real? Do they know what's natural? Do they know, or did they even choose to practice it? In my understanding of as I've gotten older and I've done a lot of reading and research and observation. Observation is important. Studying the trees, studying the plants, studying the nature of things, studying the nature of like civilization, studying the nature of tribes, seeing how tribes live compared then to now, study the history of what it was then to now, pay attention to the behavior of the people of then to now. It's once you start learning more and more and more, you're starting to realize that we was nurtured. I mean, you got to really think about it. Like as a baby, when I use the term sponge, I mean like we soak things in. We don't know nothing unless you're taught to do those things. You know what I mean? So you're taught to do these things, and your brain, your muscles, your body adapt to the experiences, and your brain soaks in the information and the representation of what the information is, the feeling, the thoughts. You might even have visions because there's an action behind the words or the teaching of whatever you're feeling and seeing and hearing and touch. You know what I'm saying? The thing is this: people. My understanding is this: human is basic, but we make it complicated. Like I'm not saying you can't be as smart as you can or learn as much as you can, but a lot of those things is really not necessary. It's not. It's like a lot of things we learn and observe and stuff like that. And not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it because knowledge is everything. But it's more of like what to do and what not to do and what's necessary and what's not necessary. So when you learn the things that's not necessary, you put them aside or you use them for inconvenience or just convenience. But the two versus the things that are necessary, the things that we're supposed to focus on that are necessary, that are needed. So when I use the term sponge in terms of, if humans or we are just sponge, meaning that we're taught to act a certain way, or we're just inheriting information but not doing anything with it or not using it to understand who we really are as people. I strongly see things the way nature intended to be. If you observe the animals, right? Just observe the animals. Every animal on the planet Earth, we're talking about, have its own structure and design and laws that it follows. You know, doesn't matter wolf, bears, tigers, rats, you name it. They all have a structure, and most of these animals stay within themselves. They stay within their group or tribe or habitat or whatever the case that meant them to for them being who they are. When they expand or change their normal habitat or ways, in some cases they use the word adapt, meaning that you might be in a different environment, and you have to basically find ways to survive in that environment. You know, you might not be able to have things as what you did know before. Let me say more simpler. What you had known before in a different environment is different from the environment that you know now. So your body might adapt to it. So let's say it was a cola. Let's say food was much more abundant in one environment, but it's less more abundant in another environment. What you can do, or what can tend to happen to the animal or the person, is they adapt, meaning that they will have to eat less, which means their appetite or their body mass will be smaller, and they will only be able to do as much as they can due to the amount of food that they eat. This is why they say sometimes when a tiger or lion or even wolves, dogs, certain animals in the jungle, they can eat a nice solid meal and not eat for another 2 weeks. Because they have to, and the things what they do most of the cases, they'll eat enough for that food to sustain them for a long period of time. Now imagine these animals had the abundance of food consistently, where they just eat, 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 eat. They'll be out of shape, like humans do. So that also means that we not supposed to eat that much. And it depends on the older you get. I think your appetite kind of tend to change a little bit. It depends on the climate that you live in, I would say. But if you're not an active person as well, you also eat less as well. You know. Now back to my point in terms of sponge behavior. I mean that kind of fall into line, but in the sense of you're adapting to your environment, which means you're learning as you get older. So your memory wise, you're only doing what you was meant to do. But there's also a design. There's like a how should I say it? Think they call it a pendulum. Not this pendulum is the right word. I can't pronounce. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the word properly, but I think that to describe what I'm trying to say is there's this. Let me use the word phenomenon, right? Where animals, like predator, it doesn't matter what kind of animal it is, they have this sense of barrier of where to go and where not to go. In some cases, they make their own barriers, but it's a sense of a barrier. You know, I don't know what the specific word to use to describe that, but it's like they know where to go or where not to go. They know how far to go, how far not to go, and anything come within that range or area. Let's say it's a predator. Anything that comes in that terrain of that zone for that predator, it will attack you or it will consider you to be food. If they go outside of that zone or that territory, that predator become you know distorted, I would say. It probably would be unaware, or it would lose some sense of itself, because it's like what's you don't really know what's going. It'd be like in a new place, right? Now it could expand its territory, but in most cases they don't. They try to maintain what they have. Now let's bring it back to the human behavior. As humans, the comparison is that we have, well, some people are comfortable in their zone, but there's humans everywhere. 1 second. Um, my chat thing is disappearing so quickly I can't even see it. I don't know why. I'm trying to. I would like to see the chat, constantly rolled. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that in the human world, we tend to, you kind of like, it's almost like you could say automatic in a sense. Some people can have the need to be expandable. They just need to expand their horizon, expand their terrain. And some people is like, I'm good where I'm at. I know not to go too far. So like for example, you have people who will be like, I'm not gonna mess with the ocean because that's not my terrain. That's not me. And then you have some people who be like, oh yeah, I need to go in there. It's like it's calling me, right? So what I'm saying is this: humans have unique behaviors, but even though we have unique behaviors, it's almost like it's almost like you was designed to be a certain way. You know what I mean? But even though you have certain unique skill compared to many others, it doesn't mean that you're different. You're genetically completely different from being a human being or the structure and design that you was made for. The main factor for a human being is to basically, you know, survive, basically. And you have to do it in a tribal group, right? You have to be a group situation. And in that group situation, you're gonna have mother and a father, and you're gonna have a chief or a lead. There's always a leader, right? There's never no. If it's a small space of a small number of people, 10 maybe or whatever, it might not need a specific leader intent, but they always have to have some kind of upper level decision making type situation. Because if everybody was left to themselves, it would be a little bit weird. It would be a little bit chaos there. Because everybody think they can make or disrupt other people. We all have to kind of be on the same page in a sense. Keep things in order that way. So, like even in the animal kingdom, as I was said, there's an order structure. There's like this chemical or this phenomenon that works for the animal kingdom. Like you don't see animals just going out slaughtering other animals just because, unless the animal is feel like it's on its territory or it feel and that it feel like it's being attacked. You know what I'm saying? Then it would probably try to defend itself by just slaughtering stuff. But if the animal have no threat to you, you no threat to it, it doesn't attack you. It doesn't really bother you at all unless you need to. You know what I mean? So in the human perspective, it's kind of the same way, but a little bit more of a discernment where you can analyze a little bit more and make the decision of like, it's more like a feel like type situation. Now, I was going back to the sponge. I was going to like tap that into say behavior because I'm saying like our functionalities, right? Going into the sponge frame of it, in the sponge frame of it, meaning that your brain, right? I'm using your sponge as a brain. Your brain soaks in information. It soaks in behavior. So if you see people around you, or your parents, your brothers, sisters, auntie, uncle, tribes, whoever, they're not doing a traditional thing. They're kind of like doing whatever the hell they want to do, right? It could be abnormal to the normal tribe behavior. the sponge, use of human being, you're gonna soak that in. For the older folks, they're already tapped into a certain structure. So seeing something different is more gonna be like, okay, but they're gonna say no because they already understand that if you do certain things different from what you normally do, it causes disruption for the norm that you do, unless you can expand it or add it and how should I tweak it to to the original tribal behavior and try to make it adapt. But other than that, if it's not fixable into the adaptation, then it's not going to work. It's going to cause more problems, because it could shape the tribe behavior and relationship a whole different way. So human sponging is like it's nurturing, right? You got to be very careful when we try to educate our people and teach them certain things, because if you, like I said, let me go back to the using that kid for example. You have a child and you're raising this child, and there's a traditional way to raise this child, of course. And most of the kids come out and play and they do their thing and do whatever, but then you choose to tell your kid, that your kid, they can't go out and play, they can't do the normal things that the other kids do, right? That kid is soaking in that mental behavior. That mental behavior can trigger certain things because the human brain or the human body have almost certain DNA structure where they have to do certain things to make them at peace, or to certain things to express themselves, so they could feel, they could blend in with the nature of things. Because human nature naturally, to we have the intelligence, right, the skill to take care of the planet, to maintain the planet. But within that planet, we have to be able to have the freedom to move around, associate, and think. So when you teach a kid to not do the mental things that he's supposed to do as a child, meaning, which is associate, which is bonding with other people, creating friendships and stuff like that. As we already know, a person who is locked in a room for a long period of time can make them lose their minds. That child is now going to go into a delusional, depressional, you know, chaotic state of mind, and he can alternate his mind to think or feel a certain type of way. And this is why sometimes when you see parents who raise their kids a certain way in those type of elements, they either come out to be destructive, or they could just be weird, disability type of weird, you know and it's not that something is wrong with the child at birth, but mentally the child was taught to dormant his brain capacity to functionalize a certain way. And that's what I mean by sponge. Like, you can really alternate a human being to behave and act a certain way. Now the thing is, let's just say the kid decide now to break away from that type of environment and go into a world where he's more socialized. It can go two ways, where like that kid can either, if it's all at once, he can explode and become destructible to himself and many other people, or hopefully it's a slow pace, or he have the strength to adapt and reconnect his mind in terms of how he feels and think and view things to the social behavior and norm of the people, where he don't lose his mind, he don't go crazy. Going into the sense of what, like I was saying, sponge again, we generally are taught to behave a certain way. And with the chaos and the destruction of a lot of people and a lot of behaviors, is a lot of the reasons why we are acting the way we do. You got people where, if moralism is not on their table, or it's not fitting with, moral is moral, right? But if the moralism in their point of view is not fitting to their, but okay, let me give you an example. saying good morning, saying hello, you know, how you doing. In somebody else's point of view, moralization to them is leave me alone. Don't say nothing to me. They just walk past by you and don't say nothing to you. In my moralization, I would be like, okay, when if I see you, I would say hello, good morning, how you doing? In their defense, in their situation, they're looking at it like, why is you talking to me? Why he's doing this, why this person saying something to me, why this person looking at me smiling, because in their lifestyle they never learn, or it never be taught as a custom mean that it becomes normal, right? A custom, a normal moral behavior to say good morning, good evening, good night, or hello, how you doing, just to reasons. And that promotes a negative, that's a negative actually. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying some people can't be in a mood and they can't, they just don't feel like responding at the moment in time because they're in a bad mood or whatever, whatever. That's necessary because, they have a justification for their behavior. They have a reason. But if you don't have a reason and that's just what you do and just how it is for you, then that's an immoral behavior. You know what I'm saying? And that's the sponge, and that's what I meant going back into the sponge like behavior again. The sponge is that you soaked in what you're pushed into believe. Like, let's use the gang violence stuff. The same thing with the gang violence stuff. A lot of these young boys, we have a lot of testosterone and hyper energy. They don't know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? So when you hang around people that show less fear or they're ready to die type mentality, it's like a blockage of emotions, right? So you have to adapt to the environment that you're in. And that environment is kind of like imposed on you, like this is normal, like it's normal behavior. So the normal behavior become the information in that sponge that you're soaking the information in the sponge. You're sucking it in, you're layering it, and it becomes normal to you. You know what I mean? Where even it's becoming so normal that PSD doesn't even bother you anymore. That's how bad it is, right? And that has been spread to humans. It's like it's normal for humans to indulge in those type of mentality and behaviors and experiments. I mean, experience. I'm not saying we're not going to have crisis situations, but when the crisis situation has become normal, when it becomes something that you seek out for versus, no, that's not natural, that's not the way it's supposed to be. You more, seeking it to be, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be, this is the natural way. You're now changing the values of what a natural, naturalistic human behavior is supposed to be. Humans, just like, okay, pay attention to the animals, right? Yes, they're gonna have a little beef here and there, and that's when they come across pet. And even sometimes they don't, but they have to have a legitimate reason for them to go into that beef situation. For humans' perspective, a lot of the beefs we're going to is nonsensical. It's like I just do it just because I want to. I just do because it's fun. I just do because they look funny to me. I just do because I like the way you look when this happened. Like we have gone so away from like reasoning or cause of action to make it to make value on things that are moral. You know what I'm saying? We have taken away value of moral things. But I'm gonna leave the conversation right here. Let me know what you guys think. Please give me some likes. I appreciate you guys paying attention. If you come across the video, appreciate you give me some likes and let me know what you think. Leave a comment. And till the next one.